Arsenyan. I'm a composer and pianist, and I'm also a pedagogue. I've been teaching for about 30 years. So starting from private, tutoring piano and violin, going to becoming, teaching assistant, when I was doing my doctoral studies at the University of Iowa, then getting a professorship position at NYU Tisch, where in fact NYU had commissioned to um, create a course for them for Tisch and Steinhardt schools, in teaching musicians and dancers how to work with each other. So that was quite an interesting, very cool adventure, and that I really loved getting into, because I had been in the dance world for a long time. When I was studying in Moscow, when I was doing my master's, I also got a job at Bolshoi Ballet, and I was accompanying their ballet classes in the morning before the shows, and then I started accompanying their rehearsals. I started collaborating with choreographers, composing for them, and since then, I was so in love with the dance world that I kept, that part of my um, artistic career on. So I created that course, taught at NYU for 9 years. At the same time, I was also concertizing, and in 2014, at the end of 2014, I won an audition for California-based agency, and my concert suddenly became even more, and I had to travel much more. I still taught at NYU for two more years while concertizing much more, but then I understood that it was getting a little too stressful and sort of unfair to my students as well, because I had to find substitute teachers all the time, and I had to move on to more performing. However, at the same in 2012, so a little bit before that, I had also uh, the invitation to start up performing arts department at AGU, Armenian General Benevolent Union, and the president of the organization, when he invited me to start up the department, because I was also a scholarship recipient of AGB while I was studying in Paris for my bachelor's studies. So I had a scholarship, from AGBU. So the organization knew me, and also the organization had followed, my path as a performer, as a composer, as a professor at NYU. And when they invited me to start up the department that would help artists like myself to advance with their careers, to coordinate already some artistic projects that they had worldwide, and also create more programming and more events, and coordinate all of those events worldwide. We have representations in over 30 some countries. I want to say 34 countries, over 70 some cities in the world. So it's a huge organization, and the oldest organization, the oldest Armenian NGO in the world. So I said very honestly, I said, I cannot be 9 to 5 in the office. This is the guy that you guys are looking for is not me, because as you know, one day I'm in Tokyo, next day I'm in London, next day in New York, but I may not be staying in New York, and I will be next day in Paris. So I'm not that big of a uh, traveling, starter, but I definitely travel a lot, and I cannot be confined to a scheduling. In fact, this is why NYU has been becoming a problem, because I cannot stay. They said, no, we want you to be you and help people like you. So, since then, HBU has become way more than a job. This is the mission. I understood that, I'm here to help advance my Armenian culture, my Armenian peers, musicians. So basically, I have been wearing these many different hats of a performer, of a composer, of a collaborator with dance world, of a professor, of a teacher, of an arts director, of a dad, you know. So all of that, and I'm pretty much wearing those hats very often, all of them at the same time. So sometimes I look and feel this, but mostly I absolutely love this hat collection that I have, and I love every single hat just as much. I don't have a preference for any of that. I create my own fashion.
Between switching the hats and stacking, I love the idea of stacking them on top of each other. Let me ask you this too. So about the Soler, right? Like, what attracts you to that style of music and his compositions in general?
First of all, discovered Soler when I was doing my master's studies in Moscow, and part of the curriculum, of course, was to perform early music. And I went to the library. I was looking through things that would be less standard than all our well-known, baroque, music, early composers. And I found Soler, and And I started, looking through, playing through, and I really fell in love with it. And it was so naturally Spanish, you know. Of course, I knew Scarlatti before I found Soler, who was Italian, but he was working for the Iberian courts first in Portugal and then in Spain. And of course, his music was always incorporating the Spanish musical trade, the strumming of the guitar, the castanets, the rhythms, the this and that. But he was Italian, and I felt, and what's also interesting is that at that time, most of court musicians were Italian, uh, because the queen loved Italian, musicians, and she brought from Portugal with her to Spain, um, and of course made them, incorporate the Spanish, straight into their music. So these Italian musicians were composing Spanish music, and while Spanish musicians composing Spanish music were considered provincial, so they did not really get that much of a spotlight. Well, Soler did get spotlight. He was also the teacher of one of the princes of Spain, and he was in the monastery of El Escorial. So he was very well respected, but his music was naturally Spanish, and this asymmetric phrasings that were not characteristic to many other composers of his time. This harmonic structure of the piece, sometimes, even like lead towards this tempo changes or meter changes too. I mean, his music was so revolutionary, so eccentric. Um, the ornamentation, there's this charisma in his music that was unbelievable. To me, it was that boldness in his also music, that was really attractive to me. So I fell in love with this sonatas instant instantly, included them in my concert repertoire. 7, 8 years until I decided, okay, well, when it was time, to choose a dissertation topic, that's what I chose. And because I was playing the sonatas on the modern instrument, I decided to write my dissertation as a performance guide, how to work on how to play these pieces on the modern instrument as opposed to the historical instrument. And when I started my research, I understood that there is not even that much of materials on it, and even in Spanish. So interestingly, this year, my dissertation, the performance guide, part of the dissertation, got translated by Monica Pajes, who is the biographer of who is the biographer of Alisa de la Rocha, the famous Spanish pianist, who is actually Spanish for her who is also famous for her performances of Soler. So Monica Pajes translated my dissertation, and it got published as a book by Boileau Editorial de Música. It's the prestigious, publishing house in Barcelona. So they published it. It is now available worldwide, and I'm presenting this book in a series of solo recitals of 12 sonatas and his controversial Fandango. So this Fandango that he wrote, they say that this couple of years where he was away from the monastery. Many scholars attribute the Fandango to those couple of years when he was away, because Fandango is not a type of dance that a monk should be even close to. And this Fandango is very, very eccentric, very interesting, super beautiful, and very virtuosic. Quite difficult technically to play, about 9 to 11 minutes long. Very interesting structure of looping one just this figure that gave birth to a lot of different works later on, such as Saint Bolero of Ravel, or Rubek's 5, or many works that are just really based on that one figurine, and the right hand goes on and on of this very cool improvisatory world, very virtuosic and very interesting. so that's the program I'm touring and presenting my book in Spanish.